It's finally Friday.
It's Friday, Friday.
Thank God it's
Welcome back to the Friday Show presented by Woodbine Racetrack, where on Saturday, the popular Pink Lloyd will be going for his fourth win in the Vigil Stakes. And a week from Saturday, the Queen's Plate will be run. Be sure to go to queensplate.com. Queen's Plate at home will be a big day for all Canadians. Well, Natalie, this is Derby week, but something happened earlier this week that I think we should talk about, and that is a press conference that was held at Keeneland that involved all the regular faces from around the industry, plus Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell of Kentucky. Combined, they unveiled a new federal law that would create yet another organization in racing, the Horseracing Integrity and Safety Act, which would create the Horseracing Integrity and Safety Authority. Now, this is legislation that is to replace the Horseracing Integrity Act that's currently stuck in the House. It has a couple Senate sponsors, but it was going nowhere. And the reason it was going nowhere was because Mitch McConnell was not going to give it the time of day in the Senate. The reason he wasn't going to give it the time of day was because Churchill Downs was opposed to it. Mitch McConnell said that he read an editorial in the Washington Post that said horse racing should be abolished. And he said, oh my God, we can't have that. So apparently he brokered a peace agreement between Churchill Downs, Bill Carstanjen, the CEO there, and the people who have been pushing for the Horseracing Integrity Act, namely the Jockey Club. And so it was kind of a kumbaya moment. Everybody is in favor of this, but we don't really know exactly what it is. What was your takeaway from the press briefing?
Yeah, it was sort of hard to have a takeaway without more information. It was one of those sort of press events that actually reminded me a lot of the announcement about the formation of the Thoroughbred Safety Coalition last year, where there's a lot of really good intent and a lot of really promising sounding declarations, but in this case, not a lot of detail about how we will accomplish these things. They did mention that USADA would become responsible for anti-doping and medication issues, and the new authority that they were establishing would be housed under, I believe, the Federal Trade Commission. But as far as how those entities relate to existing regulation through state racing commissions, who's going to pay for this stuff, no one's really that clear on that because the language of the proposed legislation hasn't been released yet.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know exactly. We've seen the language of the existing proposal that Representatives Paul Tonko of New York and Andy Barr of Kentucky have co-sponsored. That language has been out there. There were some questions about that, and one of them was, how's it going to be paid for? How much? What's it going to cost? USADA doesn't test horses. They don't have. This is a major thing for the United States Anti-Doping Agency. They do Olympic sports and that sort of thing. But currently, when you look at how many races are run, how many horses are currently tested, will the same type of approach to testing go forward, which is test every winner and a random horse, and some states have different rules. It's a little bit hard to get your head around it since you don't know the details. And the people I've talked to in fairly high places don't know the details either. And yet we've had endorsements from a lot of organizations. There's a couple of notable holdouts. The Horsemen, the HBPA, the Thoroughbred Owners of California have not sounded out on this either. But this is, to me, it's progress because the current system we have just isn't working. If we want to review this, we could say, well, why is it not working? Well, look at the Justify thing in California. That was botched. however you feel about what should happen or what shouldn't have happened, the fact that this horse tested positive for a prohibitive substance, they didn't do anything about it. They kept it quiet. It was the New York Times had a story a year after the fact, and it just made them look terrible. You had a paper trainer story that I worked with you on that where trainers were sort of taking advantage of the territorial rights of racing commissions. New Jersey Racing Commission, can't cross state lines and help commissions in other states and that sort of thing. The current system is not working, clearly. So this is progress, I guess, but we don't really know what the progress is.
Right. And I mean, it would be progress if there was some way of making some degree of uniformity under this new authority mandatory. We've seen several attempts just in the time frame of my career, and I know there were many before me as well, to kind of get different factions of the industry to agree to work together, or to agree to pass uniform rules. And as we've sort of seen from some of those existing attempts, the ones that want to participate and who really value integrity and safety are willing to spend the money and do that. And the tracks or the commissions or the groups that are not willing to do those things don't do it. And they don't really have any consequences facing them for not participating. So I guess if I have sort of one hope for this new piece of legislation, it's that there's some way of making this kind of participation mandatory, some sort of consequences if you don't choose to go along with whatever these rules are going to be. But of course, the whole reason that the self-policing hasn't worked is that horse racing is not very good at agreeing with itself. So I have a feeling there's going to be holdouts even moving forward who say, yeah, I want uniform rules, but not that one. So I'm curious to see how that part shakes out from these groups and tracks and states that have traditionally not really gone along with these various attempts to reform.
So I think one thing we should be clear about is that this is not a league office. This is not like when the NTRA was formed however many years ago. It was going to be, sort of the salvation of racing because it's a league office for marketing and all these other things. This is, the way I understand it, is currently strictly limited to medication policy. So I guess racing commissions will still have to do licensing, and that's a big part of the problem, is who gets to be licensed and all that sort of thing. So if it's medication is a big part of racing's problems, but it's not the only problem. So it is progress for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely better than nothing. If I can offer one gripe about this piece of legislation, despite not having seen the text of it yet, it's horse racing. It's 2 words. They've had all these versions of federal legislation that's, the Horse Racing Integrity Act, horse racing squished together, and just as an editor, it drives me crazy. Horse racing is 2 words. Not our biggest problem, probably our smallest problem, but come on, let's get this one right eventually.
I'm not going to quibble on that one. But I'm a little bit concerned that I don't know if this was rushed, if there really is a deal, if there is a deal, why wasn't there language that was presented at the time of the press conference? Did they just want to take, hey, it's Derby week, the national media is paying attention to horse racing right now. That's the 1 week a year when they do. And let's throw some, good news out there to ward off any negative stories this week. I don't know. But you're right. I mean, we've seen this before it wasn't that long ago that the Thoroughbred Safety Coalition was breathlessly put together and was going to be a big deal. And we still don't know what it is, really. I mean, what is the Thoroughbred Safety Coalition? I've been through the various iterations of the formation of the NTRA. And before that, the racetracks said, we're going to have a commissioner. So they went out and they hired a guy to be their commissioner. And he got an office in New York City, and he had, I think, 1 employee. And they realized that we don't really have any power to do anything. And, at least, I'm hoping that so many smart people have worked on this, and they really are smart people, that they're setting something up that will have some real meaning to it. And, another thing that I'm a little questioning is there's a blue ribbon panel, and that's, as soon as I hear that term, I worry, that's going to appoint the 9 individuals who will oversee this. And from my understanding, 5 of the 9 will be from outside of the horse industry, who will be experts in the field of doping and sport. So there'll be, maybe 5 people who have expertise in human athletics and doping, and then 4 people from inside the industry who don't have a vested interest. I don't know where you're going to find somebody like that, except for maybe retired trainers or veterinarians, and trainers don't retire. So I'm not, I'm not sure the makeup of this board, and I really don't know the makeup of the 9 people who are going to appoint them. And there's going to be a lot of sharp elbows trying to get on that blue ribbon panel, I think.
Right. I mean, presumably the blue ribbon panel will come from inside racing. And so even if you're trying to balance a group of 9 regulators in favor of those who are outside racing, you're still going to have a lot of influence, a lot of politics sort of going on probably in the background with this sort of thing. And it sort of seems like the second that the new entity might do something that doesn't play so well in racing, then everyone's going to start looking around at, well, how did the people in charge get here? And that might, reduce some confidence in it. So that's definitely worrying.
I think the one thing we can both agree on is that almost anything is better than the current system. There's so many conflicts of interest out there among regulators, and frankly, so much incompetence and indifference that I'm looking forward to seeing the language. I support the concept. I'm really interested in seeing how it's going to be financed and how it's going to be structured a little bit more. So this is the eve of the Kentucky Derby. I was on the Triple Crown News Minute with our news editor, Chelsea Hackbarth, and I gave my pick in the Derby, Honor AP, for a mild upset. This is a horse I've liked since I saw his debut last year at Del Mar. Natalie, who do you like? Who do you like in the Derby tomorrow?
I mean, I also really like the way that Honor AP has been training. He's a beautiful, beautiful mover. Of course, I'm also saying that as somebody who comes a little bit from the show horse world. So I'm not sure how seriously to take that opinion, but he is a lovely mover. He seems pretty happy at Churchill so far this week. But I just sort of, it's not a very fun choice, but I just sort of don't see how anybody's going to get by 'Tis the Law. Already having the experience at 1.25 miles, which so often horses coming into this race, that's the biggest question mark. And he's proven that he can do that without any kind of problem at all. So it's just hard to imagine anyone's going to get by him tomorrow.
When you say a horse is a beautiful mover, I'm reminded of a quote from a buyer of a multi-million-dollar yearling back in the 1980s when prices were skyrocketing. And this person said, he had such a lovely walk. Unfortunately, he wasn't very fast. But we've seen Honor AP run, and he's pretty fast. And 'Tis the Law is very fast. I think it's going to be a good race. It's finally here. I'm happy about that. And maybe by next Friday, we'll know a little more details on this big announcement was made there earlier this week. And if there is more news about that, we'll be sure to share it. We'll see you next time.